Hey everybody, this is Jenna Stavrikov coming to you through your speakers. This is my week to facilitate, and my unit is Intersectoral Collaboration. So there were only 3 readings for this. It was short and sweet, and hopefully my lecture will be too. All right, moving on. Objective 1. So examine the role of the nurse in interprofessional collaboration and on an interdisciplinary team to address needs of these populations, those populations being rural, remote, and senior. So I found the National Interprofessional Competency Framework, which is one of our readings, to fit this very well. It describes the competencies required for effective interprofessional collaboration and the domains. There are 6 of them, that being role clarification, team functioning, patient, client, family, community-centered care, collaborative leadership, interprofessional communication, and interprofessional conflict resolution. So I'm not going to go through all these points. What I'm going to do is just give you a little blurb for each one, and you guys can read the points on your own. All right, so learners understand, role clarification. Learners understand their own role and the roles of those in other professions and use this knowledge appropriately to establish and achieve patient, client, family, and community goals. I think that one's really important, only because I think nurses commonly are used to navigate and connect patients to other sectors. So knowing who represents what and what they can do to help that client is essential to the nursing role in Saskatchewan. Team functioning. Learners understand the principles of teamwork dynamics and group team processes to enable effective interprofessional collaboration. So this one to me was just understanding how a group works together and how teams come together and how to facilitate discussions and stuff. All very important. Patient, client, family, community-centered care. This is where learners seek out, integrate, and value as a partner the input and the engagement of the patient, client, family, community in designing and implementing care services. Really what this to me is having that person identify the problem or the need and the community kind of working together, or the members of the team working together or alongside in collaboration to create that care plan and to move forward. So collaborative leadership, this is where learners understand and can apply leadership principles that support a collaborative practice model. This domain supports shared decision-making as well as leadership, but it also implies continued individual accountability for one's own actions. Responsibilities and roles are explicitly defined within one's professional scope of practice. Really what this is saying is that we need to be able to work with others. You need to be able to facilitate, as a nurse, effective team processes, get the decision-making down, co-create an environment where leadership can be shared, as well as principles can be discussed about how to provide that care, in what way. Interprofessional communication, so learners from different professions communicate with each other in a collaborative, responsive, and responsible manner. Keep it professional. I think that's pretty straightforward. It's important to do, and you need to be able to use that relational focus that nurses are very gifted at doing to create those relationships with the members, the clients, and the families to move forward. Interprofessional conflict resolution. Learners actively engage self and others, including the client, patient, family, in positively and constructively addressing disagreements as they arise. This is huge. People, it's common that people don't always have the same ideas in mind, and they want to use different routes, and it's essential for nurses to understand how to resolve those without having any bad blood afterwards. We all are trying to do the best for that patient or client or community. Okay, so I put this on. This is the framework or the model that we're discussing, and in the back there it has some background considerations: complexity, simple complexity, contextual issues, quality improvement. Basically, complexity is that interprofessional collaboration approaches may differ along continuum from simple to complex, saying that some issues are going to be point A to point B, and some are going to take a whole other route that requires a lot more collaboration between different sectors or professions. So very important to recognize when you're thinking about all these other aspects of a role. Contextual issues in specific areas of practice, such as rehabilitation, residential care, and the competency framework is used in support of a comprehensive and consistent team. So this isn't going to work for everyone. This is something that you need that time to assess, and nurses need to be mindful of that. Like, this is not going to work in an emergency situation, right? We don't want to. Yeah. Okay, quality improvement. So by working together across professions and across institutional roles, improvement activities carried out by interprofessional teams rather than individuals or uniprofessional teams may more effectively address quality issues, especially in complex systems. I want to say lean was very similar to this, but I know a lot of people disagree with lean. Okay, so objective 2. Examine the role of intersectoral collaboration in addressing determinants in older, adult, rural, and remote populations. Intersectoral collaboration is huge to these populations, and it's important to recognize that these sectors, are things other than just government sectors. It also is representatives from private, voluntary, and nonprofit groups, which I didn't even consider, and all those have a role to play in addressing some of these determinants. The reading from Canada Health, I found very good for this part, just because it talks about the success, like how to succeed with collaboration, or intersectoral collaboration. So engaging those partners early on, establishing concrete objectives, identifying and supporting a champion, which is just like the face of whatever sector it is, and then invest in the alliance and building process, generate political support, share leadership, accountability, and rewards among partners. When you think about we need more access to rural areas, that means we need increased funding. So you get the champion of, let's say, a nonprofit group, and then they build an alliance with a healthcare team, and from there they generate political resort because they have a champion that is like the face of this, and they do the inspiring, and they take that leadership role. And all of a sudden, you see telehealth in the north, right? And people are getting connected to specialists up north. That's what I see this as. Okay, so objective 3, this to me is kind of like 2 parts, just because it's such a kind of big objective. Identify factors involved in general health and health services delivery in rural and remote areas, and to recognize possible multidisciplinary and community-oriented approaches to address issues in healthcare. So, factors involved in general health and health services delivery include, but not limited to, this is more like a personal understanding of what factors are involved, in that funding is always an issue. Support is also an issue. I think there's a lot of displacement and disassociation with the issues that a lot of these vulnerable populations are experiencing, like such as seniors. I don't think they get a lot of thought. So finding that support is a huge factor to getting those services. Collaboration between elected government officials, rural municipalities, and the health sector. This is a very contentious issue because, the health sector gets amalgamated into one section, and then you have one person who is running the show for someone up north and they've never been there before. And I think that representation gets lost after a while. Same with elected government officials, right? Like, they don't always have these populations in mind when they get elected, and it's not usually part of their platform, because voter turnout is more in urban centers. And then optimization of healthcare professionals. I think this is huge because a lot of times people are going up north because they get an extra 10 grand and living allowance to be there. They stay for the year and they leave, right? And I think it's essential that we find that we use people that are, want to be there, are invested, and want to spend time there, and they're passionate. Part 2, recognize possible multidisciplinary and community-oriented approaches to address issues in healthcare. So this one was kind of like that primary healthcare model, which was one of our readings. It was the future of primary healthcare in Saskatchewan. They had identified a couple of things that they needed to work on. Those approaches showing that, which is the last little bit here, that last point, the synergy created by true collaboration will be much greater than the sum of each professional group's individual contribution, meaning that, we have to work together. It all just kind of comes down to working together to achieve these goals and making sure we all have the same goal in mind. So pushing the community-oriented approach, which would be primary healthcare, to meet these needs. Okay, yeah, so I think that's kind of everything. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Yeah, we'll see you all next week.